Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. As always, wherever you are, I pray that you're blessed, whether you're at home, work, by yourself, with family, colleagues, wherever the case may be. Pray that you're blessed and safe. Welcome to Jeff's Two Cents. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson. All right, so for today, I'm just going to go over two topics. We're going to go over Donald Trump travel ban, or should I say updated or revised travel ban, and then comments made by Dr. Ben Carson as he was speaking to employees of HUD, Housing Urban Development. So I'll start with President Trump as always. So President Trump signed a new or an updated version of his executive order for the travel ban. Now, if you remember, the first week when Donald Trump came into office, he signed the travel ban into effect. There was a lot of uproar because of how, not only how hasty it was, but how people felt that, or even believed that it was targeting Muslims specifically, and just targeting even hardworking Muslims and people that had nothing to do with terrorism and so on and so forth. Even though Donald Trump's mentality and mindset was to protect his nation, and therefore to put this travel ban into effect, which of course also bled into things that were going on prior to him with President Obama's administration and so on and so forth. So it wasn't like this was the first time that a president of the United States had put in a travel ban restricting certain countries that was on a list of either harboring terrorism or terrorist elements. So with the new travel ban, it no longer covers legal residents or existing visa holders. So if you had a visa on, I want to say January 27th, 2017, or even prior to that, and then of course leading up to this particular executive order, then you're covered. You can travel back and forth freely. And then of course it makes waivers possible for some businesses, diplomats, and other travelers. Now the new ban is going to go into effect March 16th. It actually removes a nation. It removes Iraq. And this is due to Iraqi officials promising to upgrade their security checks. This is coming from the White House. It adds categories of people who would also be exempt, as I mentioned about people with the visas prior to January 27th, and of course leading up to the effective date of this order. And then of course it also goes into returning refugees, asylees, and asylees are individuals who have been granted asylum or refugee status in the United States. And so they're explicitly exempt from this executive order. Now, of course, the Trump administration is continuing to say, look, we are doing this for security reasons. And of course, there's other people out there that are like, well, we still need to fight this. We still need to go to, Supreme Court, so on and so forth, for the belief that, we still don't know, we still don't understand if this executive order is targeting a specific religion, meaning Islam. Of course, once again, people are going to keep coming up with the excuse over and over and over again. Once again, President Trump is trying to protect the nation in all ways possible. This, of course, is one of the ways. The other way he's looking at it is the border. So once again, it's like it doesn't matter what he does, it doesn't matter how good he dots his I's and crosses his T's, you're still going to have people out there that are going to make some sort of excuse and cry about it. And so also the list of people that are on here that are also eligible for the waivers includes travelers, I think I mentioned this a few seconds ago, who have been previously admitted to the United States, but also people that have been admitted to the United States for work, for school, those seeking to visit or live with close relatives, and who would face hardship if denied entry. So that right there should start waking people up to the fact that, once again, Donald Trump is not racist, and Donald Trump does not hate Muslims. Especially if he puts this into his executive order, that if you being denied would potentially put you in a position where you would face hardship where you're coming from, and therefore that can now possibly get you a waiver to come into the country. I don't understand how this could come from somebody who is hateful and spiteful. Now there are people out there, once again, they're going to fight and bite on it and say, well, Donald Trump, he's just doing that just to cover his ass and da-da-da-da. And on one hand, I do agree, because that's what he should have done in the first place, to cover his ass. But at the same time, he's also doing this, once again, to show that it's not just, okay, it's just America and screw everybody else. Yes, it's America first, but at the same time, if you're going to come into this country, we're still going to vet you, we're still going to go through the process, and then we'll allow you in. And you can live safe and sound, you can visit your family, you can go to school, go to work, whatever the case may be. There was an attorney, immigration attorney from Fragomen Law Firm in Washington, D.C., by the name of Mr. Andrew Greenfield, who said, all of the exceptions make the new order a lot harder to attack. Exactly. And as I was saying earlier, you know, you're still going to have a lot of people out there that's going to pick and pick and pick at it. Because now, as I just said a few seconds ago, you're still going to have people out there that are still going to whine and cry and complain about, well, we still believe that this is an attack on religion. Hey, Vern, thanks for jumping in. Appreciate it. But they're going to have to prove that, not only in the court of law, but they're also going to have to prove this. Because now this is the kicker. This is this is the beauty of this revised travel ban. The new order now will leave not just the state of Washington, but also any other state out there that wants to fight against it. They're going to have to argue now on behalf, not on behalf of legal, legal immigrants and people that have been living here and working here, or even visiting and traveling. Not those folks that have been already vetted and that have visas and so forth. They're now going to have to fight and argue for the folks who are considered unidentified foreign nationals. And even those folks who possibly have been, you know, through the vetting process and then have been denied for whatever reasons. They're going to have to fight on their behalf of that. They're also going to have to fight on foreign nationals that have not been screened. I just said a few seconds ago that those that have already been screened and were denied. Now you got folks that have not been screened, had not been vetted and so on and so forth by U.S. authority. Not just from their own country, but also really from the union. Because once again, before you come in here, our folks have to also put you through a vetting process. So, like I said, the state of Washington, as well as all these other states out there, or any other state that wants to fight this, that's really, and that's what the lawyer is really talking about, that this revision is going to make it so much harder to attack it, because now we're going to have to really stretch and fight for those foreign nationals that haven't been vetted, that are pretty much considered unidentified, and you know, so and so and so forth, all these different terms and legalities and everything else. It's going to be very, very interesting. And once again, I love the fact that people out there have been so distracted, you know, and before I had said this, you know, many times before, that Donald Trump was very hasty and very, you know, stupid in a way for just pushing out that previous travel ban, just being so hasty with it. And I kind of take back, not saying I take back everything, because it was, you know, from a professional standpoint, especially in a leadership position, to just put something out so quickly and not expect such backlash, that was stupid. But I do step back a little bit, because I do have to give President Trump credit if, of course, if what he was doing was to distract people so he could continue his agendas and pushing forth certain executive orders and things of that nature, and getting not just the Democratic Party or certain elements of the Democratic Party, but even certain people out there so distracted and so caught up with the foolishness of what they thought about Donald Trump. Oh, I think he's a bigot. I think he's a racist. I think he's this, he's that, the other. And wasting your time, not even protesting, but wasting your time rioting. And here he is just signing stuff away. Here he is, once again, following to the letter of what he said he was going to do with the Planned Parenthood, with the border, with the Keystone Access Pipeline, the Dakota Access Pipeline. I mean, the man, I mean, every single day, every single week when I go online, he's on it. And now he turns around with the revision of his travel ban. And I'm just like, beautiful. And the way it's written out, and I mean, and you guys can go look it up. I love it. Other people may not, but hey, it is what it is. So now, oh, Vest, hey, thanks for jumping in. He said, basically, if you want them over here so bad, now prove it. Exactly. Bingo. And basically, to also, once again, jump into what Vess was saying, which is what I was saying earlier, they're going to have to fight now, once again, for the unidentified foreign nationals and the folks that have not been vetted. So, hey, we'll see what happens. So now going into Dr. Ben Carson. So now this is the big thing that I really wanted to get on. There's a lot of folks out there who are pissed with Dr. Ben Carson because he was talking to a group of employees for HUD, and of course, those who know Dr. Ben Carson, he is now the Secretary of HUD, Housing Urban Development, and he was talking. Basically, he was. I want to say it was probably about 20 plus minutes. He was talking, and he basically was going into the whole thing about America and what makes America great, and how America is still, one of the greatest countries, or if not the greatest, still in the world. And he has visited over 58 countries, and he still believes that, we are, anybody that lives here is lucky and blessed. And as he was going into that, he was also talking about, some of our forefathers, who came here from, say, South America, came here from Europe, came here from certain parts of Africa. Now, when it came to Africa, per se, more specifically, and he was talking about immigrants, he first started, and he started good. He said, okay, go to Ellis Island, and you will see, like when you go visit the Statue of Liberty, stuff like that, he said, you'll see these pictures of these wave of immigrants that came over in ships and by boats, right? He says, you'll see a lot of them holding their belongings. And he says, look into their eyes, and you'll see the determination in their eyes. He said, you'll also notice that they're coming to a place where they don't really know what this country has for them, and they're not sure. It's pretty much going into the unknown for them. They're leaving their homeland because of whatever reason. Now they're here trying to make a better way, trying to make a better life. So he said, you look at the determination in their eyes, and these are people who are working, not 3 to 4 days a week. They're working 5 to 7 days a week. They weren't working like 8 hours a week. They're working 10 to 16 hours a week, and they weren't doing it for themselves. They were doing it for their kids. They're doing it for their grandkids and the future generations, so that way they could have more of an opportunity to pursue the American dream and live a better life. He also says, America is, and that's what America is about. It's about opportunity. It's about pursuing your dreams. So then, as he's still talking about immigrants, he says, there was also a group of immigrants that came here on the bottom of ships, bottom of slave ships. Basically talking about the African slaves that were brought here involuntarily, of course. And he said, they had a dream too, that their dream was for, their sons and their daughters and generation after generation could pursue prosperity, and be free and live their lives. Now, I won't defend Dr. Ben Carson because, once again, as intelligent as Dr. Ben Carson is, now I'll say it this way, on one hand I'm going to defend him, on the other hand I'm not going to defend him. What I'm not going to defend him on is the fact that he said, oh yeah, there were other immigrants that were brought here on the bottom of ships, bottom of slave ships. Now, anybody with a lick of common sense knows that they were not immigrants. I mean, yes, you could, if you really wanted to beat down the definition and really get into the technicals about it, you probably could make an argument about that. I'm not going to, because they were slaves, point blank, period. You can also say the same thing about, when they talk about the story of pilgrims and Thanksgiving, that, all the white people that came here were pilgrims. And when you actually go and read the story, there's a reason why those pilgrims left Great Britain. There's a reason why they were sent over here, and a lot of them were not sent here of their free will. A lot of them came here as slaves, which of course they try to sugarcoat it and call it indentured servitude and da-da-da-da. But once again, that's a discussion, another video for another time. But kind of using that as an example, maybe not the best example, but as an example that people could try to use to try to argue, to try to defend Dr. Ben Carson's comment about the whole slavery thing, or immigrants in the bottom of the boat. But at the same time, even though I believe that wasn't the smartest way of adding that, of combining that with your your speech about America being great and so forth, where if he would have said something to the effect of, and I'm just going off the top of my head, if he would have said something like, after talking about Ellis Island and so forth, let's not forget that, there was a time when we had slaves who were brought here involuntarily, and they went through so much hardship and so much strife, and these were people who worked for free, who worked for nothing. And these were people who stood up and they fought for the freedom, and they eventually started to march for the freedom. These were people who started fighting back with their minds. These were people who at first fought with their hands, like Nat Turner and so forth, who got up and fought. But then they started using their minds. These are people who use their minds to escape towards freedom, like Harriet Tubman. These were people who now use their minds to better the cause for the black race, or black people, or African Americans, however you want to phrase that. Like Frederick Douglass. When Frederick Douglass now started using his mind, started educating himself, and started becoming educated, and would now go from a slave to now a free man, and not just a regular free man just walking around the streets, but now a guy who is there face to face more consistently than other black people at the time, talking with the President of the United States at the time, Abraham Lincoln. And then you have, Dr. King. I mean, and you can go on and on and on and on and on. And something to that effect where, he could say, these were people who went through probably the worst of it all. I mean, you had the folks that came from Ireland that were treated like dogs. You had the folks that came from Scotland. You had the folks that came from China. You had a lot of people that were either seen as dogs and treated as dogs, or treated as slaves and so forth. But you can definitely say, yes, black people went through some of the worst and some of the most horrific times in this country, and look at what they did, and look at what they have accomplished, even to the point to where we had the first black president, Barack Obama, something to that effect. I truly believe that would have been a little bit better, a little bit smarter, for Dr. Ben Carson to put out there. So, I can understand why a lot of people are disappointed with Dr. Ben Carson for saying that. And like I said, I can't defend that. And I got to call it what it is. Call a spade a strike a strike. It is what it is, which is very dumb and very stupid. And I do hope that very quickly that Dr. Ben Carson, I understand that the president may come out and apologize and this and that and the other, but which is, his job. He's the head guy. But I do hope that that Dr. Ben Carson does come out and apologize and say, look, that's not what I meant. This is, what I meant was, and because this is what I meant, this is what I should have said. And being more sensitive and more cautious and more intelligent about that. So anyway, but at the same time, I do understand what Dr. Ben Carson was talking about. And which is what I was just saying off the top of my head. Here's a group of people who, once again, they were brought, they didn't really come here of their free will. They were brought here. They went through slavery. They went through this horrific period in American history, and they made, a mountain out of mold. And as I mentioned before, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and then you have, you can jump to W.B.E. Du Bois, you can jump to Thurgood Marshall, you can go from politics, you can go to entertainment, you can go to, look at Dr. Ben Carson, one of the greatest surgeons, if not in the world, at least in America. He's known as one of the greatest surgeons. And like I said, President Barack Obama, who became the first black president, so and so forth. So all these achievements that we have made, and at the same time, yes, there's a lot of negative things that you can look at, but focusing on the positive, black people in this country have been able, time and time again, once again, through the arts, through entertainment, through politics, through a lot of these different career fields in the workforce and throughout society, black people have made their mark. And that is what I believe Dr. Ben Carson was really trying to get at. And he also said something to the effect of, he said, America is the only country that is great enough and big enough to allow all these groups of people to pursue and live their dreams. And I agree. I completely agree. And I've said it many times before, and I've said this in earlier videos I made last year when I was really getting on, about America, about certain things, about the history, about slavery, about the Native Americans, about a lot of things, you know, because I'm the type of guy, I don't just see things one way. You know, I don't just see things from the left or see things from the right. I see things, at least I try to see things from every perspective and take out what is truthful, what is intelligent, and speak on it. So, like I said, I don't defend Dr. Ben Carson for that particular part of his speech, because he should have been smarter. You know, and like I said, I hope he does apologize, but not apologize like groveling. I hope he just, you know, stands up like a man and says, look, you know, this is what I said, this is what I meant, da da da. Now, also on the side where I do defend Dr. Carson, what bothers me is that in this society we are so quick to just jump on somebody's back, on somebody's case, because they said something. And once again, there's nothing wrong with calling somebody out, especially if they weren't smart enough, or they weren't sensitive enough, or they were being intentionally ignorant. It's another thing when you watch a speech, and I watched Dr. Ben Carson's speech. That's why I said it was about 20 plus minutes, and I watched his speech, and I also watched towards the end when they were asking him questions, and you can just tell. I mean, and not just from this video. You can go back and look at other videos, and even read some of his interviews, and watch some of his interviews, and read some of his interviews and articles. And the guy is not a horrible person. You know, he's not perfect, but he's not a horrible person. He doesn't mean harm to anybody. And when you read about his life and where he grew up and how he grew up, you know, he didn't really come from financially rich upbringings. You know, his mother had a third grade education. It was him and his brother. So there's a lot of things this guy went through, and I believe they also did a movie about his life. And I have to watch it because I want to say Cuba Gooding Jr. stars in it. But anyway, the point is, instead of sitting here and just getting so, and this is a problem, getting so distracted and so harped onto one thing. And hey, Edmundo, thank you for jumping in, bro. And I'll read your comment in a minute. Hold on. Thank you, bro, for jumping in. And instead of just jumping on one little thing, and it's not a little, sorry, instead of just jumping on one thing and just harping on that and becoming distracted, instead of focusing on what the man is trying to say, which I just pointed out. He's talking about how great this country is. He has visited 58 other countries, and he's saying that everybody that lives here and anybody that comes here, that wants to live here, that wants to assimilate to the American way of life and follow the values and the laws and so forth, you are lucky and you are blessed. And he was talking about, you know, the immigrants that came here in the past, and he understands, you know, comparing that to the immigrants of today who are coming over here and trying to come over here and who want to live over here and who want to live a good life and create a better life for their future generations. And so understanding that, and instead of, like I said, instead of just falling into this trap that certain elements in the mainstream media and certain trolls out there online who are so busy, like, oh, look what he said, look what he said, I got him. Once again, focus on the entire concept of what he was talking about. He said, we live in a nation where people are trying to get rid of God. Big mistake. He said, if you look at our founding documents in the Declaration of Independence, talking about certain inalienable rights that were given to us by our Creator. The Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God. He said courts, certain courts when you go out there, and even on our money, says what? In God we trust. He says we should have godly principles, you know, loving your neighbor, developing your God-given talent so you could basically become a better asset to your family, to your friends, to your society, to your nation, possibly to the world. He talked about one nation. He said if we do this, then we truly become one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I truly respect that about this guy. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to put the link of his speech at the end. Once I close up this video, I'll put it in the. I'll make sure to put it in. I'll add it into my title post, and that way you guys can, or I just put it in the comment section. That way you guys can click on it. But watch his entire speech. And once again, like I said, I'm not defending him for saying that comment about, you know, immigrants in the bottom of the boat, because that was just dumb. But at the same time, I'm not going to now just discard everything else that the man's been talking about. There's a reason why Donald Trump was chasing after this guy to put him on his team. Remember, when it was, realized, well, pretty much when Donald Trump won the presidency, won the election, myself, and there's a lot of other people out there that wanted Dr. Ben Carson on his team. And I was actually hoping that he would become the Surgeon General, because I thought that would be the perfect job for him. But he was like, no, I don't want that. And then I thought Dr. Ben Carson was just kind of gonna, disappear. And in my mind, I was like, no. I was like, this guy is too much of an asset. He's too intelligent. You just can't let this guy walk away. And the fact that Donald Trump still pursued him and said, look, basically was like, look, what can I give you? I need you on my team. Education, because I think he also, potentially was like throwing the education part in there. But then he took, housing, urban development, which I thought was, very, and then once again, going back to what I said about Dr. Ben Carson, and now when I think about it, him taking the housing, urban development, he's a very, not only intelligent, but he's a very humble human being. He's not perfect, but at the same time, he goes out and he does his best to try to put out the best example that he can so other people can follow him. And as a matter of fact, there was a young lady at the end of his speech who asked him a question. I think it was the last question that he took. And the lady basically said, you inspired me, and you inspired me to think big. And because of, where you come from and what you have done, you have now inspired me, and you inspired other people now to go out and want to become better people and want to go out and become contributing members of society. And, when I thought about it, I said, man, if he was a Surgeon General, maybe in his mind he was thinking that was just too, number one, it was just too, I won't say convenient for him, because I don't think it would be easy per se, but I think it would be too popular in his mind. It would have been expected. Whereas here now he's taken this job, the housing and urban development, which is not very sexy. It's not a very sexy title. Whereas, if Dr. Ben Carson, Surgeon General, that would have been like, whoa. Whereas housing, urban development, it's like, okay, and when you think about it, in the past, like let's say the past 20, 30 years, how many of us right now, without going online, can actually name the past secretaries of housing, urban development? So also when I think about that, I think he also realized, as humble as he is, he also recognizes, because of his achievements and the things that he's done in the past and how far he has come and everything that he has achieved, he is now able to take that, I guess you could say, fame and recognition that comes with his name to now put it towards a department that really has never really had that light shined on it. So once again, that's where I defend Dr. Ben Carson. Once again, not defending his comment, but that's where I defend him as a man, and as a man who stands on principles, because once again, in this day and age, we don't really have a lot of men, women as well, but we really don't have a lot of men that really stand on their principles, that's come out and say, look, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I stand by, this is what I'm running on. And I truly believe that that's another reason why President Trump chased after him. And once again, that's another reason why I believe that President Trump became the President of the United States, because he came out and said, look, this is me, I'm unfiltered, I'm not perfect, but this is what I'm going to do. You elect me, this is what's going to happen. Boom. Boom. And I love it. And one of the last things that I'll touch on before I get to the comments, and Raheem, thanks for jumping in, bro, appreciate it. And anybody else that's watching right now, I appreciate it. But one of the last things I'll touch on before I get to the comments, talking about personality. And this is what I realized the other day when I was thinking about, I realized a long time ago, but it just really, it just kept, it kept bugging me this whole weekend. Like, there were times when I just couldn't sleep. I just kept staying up, and I was like, man, why can't I sleep? President Trump, his personality, right? Remember, I said in videos past, I said, this is one of the reasons why he got elected. He was unfiltered. He came out. He wasn't speaking from a script. He was just like, boom, 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 boom. And I thought about something the other day, and I said, there's a lot of people out there who are pissed. Probably some people who are still pissed, excuse me, that Trump became president and that Trump is president, right? And there's people out there that are like, oh, he's so brash and he's so arrogant and he's this and that and the other. And I thought to myself, I said, when I was in the military, I came across a lot of people that were Trump-ish or Trump-esque, that had certain attributes about themselves, certain characteristics about themselves, certain demeanor about themselves that reminded me of Trump. Now, if you ask me, do I believe that Donald Trump is a racist? No. Do I believe that he's a bigot? No. Do I believe that maybe there's certain people that he doesn't like and certain things that he doesn't like? Of course. I mean, there's certain people I don't like, but I don't believe it's based off of skin tone or their religion. Because you got to remember, this guy came from the business world where he really had to define people past their religion and skin tone. He really had to analyze them internally, mentally, and figure out who these people are. And once again, he didn't get to where he got to by just sitting around and just money just falling in his lap every year. So he had to become, I guess you could say, discriminating as far as the content of the character. As Dr. King once had said, not being judged by the skin tone, but by the content of the character. And so when I look at Donald Trump and when I listen to a lot of these people, there's a lot of people like, oh, he's racist, he's this, he's that, the other, right? And some of the same people, when I was in the military, some of the same people, I'm not going to mention any names, but some of the same people who are now talking about Trump being a racist and this and that, the other, and da-da-da-da, and oh, he's so ignorant, right? Because that's the key. He's ignorant. He's ignorant. When I was in the military, once again, I came across a lot of people, and when I say that they were like Trump, I don't mean like they were like Trump, like how, in a way, he is charismatic. No. Or how he is willing to sit down and talk to the people. No. I mean the ignorant part. There were people in the military that we had all come across, different ranks, leadership positions, who were so ignorant that either they they had some sort of hidden racism inside of them, or a closeted racist, or whatever the case may be, but they had bigotry inside of them. And there were those who were sexist. I mean, I remember that there were officers who told me to my face that they could not stand a woman being in the military, especially as an officer. And the funny thing was, I remember speaking up and standing up. Maybe not to every single one of them, but I remember standing up and speaking up against some of those type of people, some of those blatantly ignorant people. And the funny thing is, I also remember certain other people not speaking up and not saying anything. As a matter of fact, I remember certain people who were trying to lock themselves to the hips of some of these people, who were so busy trying to be buddy-buddy with some of these people. And even when some of these blatantly ignorant people didn't care about you, didn't give a damn about you, and sure enough didn't give a damn about your family, some of you didn't care. So I don't want to see the crocodile tears coming out now, because now you have somebody that you believe is ignorant and this and that and the other. Because guess what? I believe in God. And I truly believe that even if you don't ask for it, God still gives you what your heart desires. Still gives you what your heart desires. So for those of you who were so busy trying to be part of the good old boy system and hanging out with a lot of these ignorant people who you did not speak up against, and I'm not saying you have to speak up against them in front of everybody. You can do what I did sometimes. I would go to their office, and I'm talking about general officers. I'm talking about full bird colonels. I'm talking about when I was a lieutenant, when I was a captain, when I was a major. Hell, I'm talking about even when I was a cadet. And I was speaking up against some of these people because they either said something that was blatantly disrespectful, that had nothing to do with the military or had nothing to do with training, or they were doing certain things that I truly believe was an abuse of their power. And once again, God will give you what your heart desires. So this whole time you had all these people who were running around, hanging around, and trying to be friends with ignorant people. And now you got somebody as president that you are now crying about. He's so ignorant. Hey, people, karma. It's called karma. What goes around comes around. And once again, I'm not saying that President Trump is ignorant. He's not perfect. And yeah, there are times when he does say things that is just like, really? But I'm not going to go to the route of, oh, he's racist and da-da-da. No. Because once again, since I've been making videos about Donald Trump, nobody, not one person has been able to provide to me a link or an article or a video showing me where Donald Trump is racist. And people will say, oh, well, he said it in one of his speeches when he was campaigning about, he said all Mexicans are rapists and criminals. No, he did not say that. Go back and look at the entire speech. He didn't say that. Well, he said that all Muslims are... Go back and look at his speech. Now, yes, he probably did say certain things at certain times during his campaign where he said, yes, he would ban... if he becomes president, he's going to make a travel ban against Muslim nations and stuff. He may have said that, but once again, when he became president, he clarified that. But you still haven't provided me anything to show me that the man's racist. So anyway, as I said, in closing, before I get to the comments, I just wanted to put that out there because that was really, bugging me. Like, how are all these people now coming out and they want to stand up and they want to speak up against Trump and, oh, he's so ignorant and that's not how a leader's supposed to be. But yet when you were in the military, and I'm not saying all of you, but you know who you are. Or if it's not you, maybe some of your battle buddies. When some of these NCOs or certain warrant officers or certain commission officers were blatantly going around and being ignorant and doing ignorant things, and you didn't say anything. And as a matter of fact, you want to be part of their buddy group. Well, you got your heart desire. You got it. Whatever your heart desired, you just got it in President Trump. And yes, he's your president. So keep crying. I don't care, because the fact of the matter is, if you truly were the type of person that you claim to be now, you would have been that person back then. You would have been speaking up from the beginning. And that's the reason, once again, like I said, the silent majority. That's the reason why he got voted in. That's the reason why you don't see a whole million, millions and millions of people's crying and rioting all over the place. Because we don't care. Because there's a lot of, how can I say it? There's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing out there. There's a lot of people, when now they don't get what they want, now they want to start crying. Now they want to start whining and complaining. Now they want to stand up and speak and fight. But before, when you had the opportunity, before the cameras were on a certain person or on a certain group, you didn't want to say anything. You were comfortable. You were good. And when certain people were actually speaking up, and when certain people were actually standing up, we didn't see some of you guys. Where were you at? When those ignorant leaders of different ranks were doing stupid things, I don't remember seeing you. But now you want to speak up. Now you want to speak up. Get out of here, man. Get out of here. I don't give a damn. So anyway, going to the comments real quick before I close up. Let's see. We got... Vest says, Trump's the first president that's done everything he said he's going to do. Exactly. Exactly. And he said, Ben Carson, former child neurosurgeon, hits a nerve. Said, I knew which one to hit. Vern says, Trump learned a lesson that rushing to pass things he will lose. Taking time and having orders written and worded properly claims a majority of pushback. And Vern, yeah, you're exactly right. It was very hasty. And it's the thing about Donald Trump as well. It doesn't matter what he does. Once again, remember, they're trying to find anything possible to impeach this guy. They're still talking about the Russians. They're still talking about the Russians. And then Donald Trump hit them with the Russian thing this past weekend. He was hitting them on Twitter. He was showing pictures of Schumer and Nancy Pelosi talking with Russian officials. But once again, and of course Trump, he's being very sarcastic about it. He goes, "Oh, I want an investigation now," and I love it. I love it. That's why I'm like, Trump, just keep hitting them right over the head. I love it. And that's why I love how Trump is using Twitter. And you know what's funny? Real quick, Vern. What I find real funny is that when President Obama, when he was out there, mingling with celebrities and going on talk shows, nobody had a problem. It was all good. I didn't have a problem with it. Okay, fine. Whatever. That's his prerogative. As long as he's doing what he's supposed to do for the nation. Got it. But President Trump is on Twitter. He's tweeting. And it's like, it's a big deal. It's like, oh my God, he's supposed to be the president. He's supposed to be focusing, and he's tweeting. Give me a break, people. Come on, wake up. Stop crying about stupid stuff. Here comes Vest. It says, yeah, Oz, white slaves. Don't let Washington Post hear you say that. Exactly. Exactly. Hey, Jamie, thanks for jumping in. Appreciate it. Vest says, it feels to me that he's trying to say we are all equal because we all came from somewhere else. It could also be for an attention block to draw people in and to get people to look stuff up and actually learn. Very true. Very true. Could very well be. Vest also says Trump has business in many different countries. How can he be racist? Look at the stuff look at the staff that work for him. Trump is a true American badass. I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that with you on that one, Vest. Edmundo says, thank you, brother, for taking the time to voice out the truth and realities with hopes. Hope some of us can open our minds for a better world. Hooah. Exactly, brother. Appreciate that. Thank you, bro. Thank you. Mildred says, Uncle Tom sadly has ancestors too. Yes, Mildred, Uncle Tom does. And also, speaking of Uncle Tom, somebody had said this a while back. They were talking about the Uncle Tom and the Sambo. And thank you, Mildred, for bringing that up. Because I was actually going to talk about this a while back and I completely forgot. People, please, go back and read the book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. And not only read the book, go and do the research of when it was written and the time frame and what black people were thinking, especially the black people that could read at that time, about the book Uncle Tom's Cabin. You see, nowadays we come out and we just, and I'm kind of guilty of this as well because in the past I used to call people Uncle Toms. Now I don't. I use other terms like Sambo because if you remember in the book Uncle Tom's Cabin, Uncle Tom represented what you would call nowadays the simp, the simple-minded person that kind of grows up and just like, doesn't really know a whole lot, but then he starts to wake up. And he represents a group of people that was brainwashed and living in a matrix. Remember the movie The Matrix? And the oppressor, the slave master, was the oppressor, the oppressing system. So as Uncle Tom was waking up and he started to fight back verbally against the master, against the system, he was killed for it. But you got to remember who killed him. Now, yes, he was killed by the orders of the white slave master. But who was it that killed Uncle Tom? It was somebody, a character by the name of Sambo. Somebody who looked just like him. Maybe not exactly like him, but shared the same features, was a black guy like him, black African American, right? Sambo is basically the word, really, if you're going to use the word to kind of talk about somebody that is like a race traitor, sellout, whatever, that's the word you should be using. Uncle Tom actually was considered a hero. Once again, this is for people who are educated and read and, do research. Uncle Tom at first was seen as a hero in folklore because he was literally, not literally, but he was somewhat of, like, you could say like an equivalent back then of what we see now with Neo in the Matrix. He was unplugging. He was waking up, and he was speaking up, and he was killed for it. Sambo was the one that was so good and so happy to get that government cheese. Sambo was like, Mammy. Sambo was the one that was willing to do everything and anything, believing that he was free. Even basically stabbing one of his fellow brothers in the back. Or basically killing him. Basically, Sambo was the traitor. And a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a lot of educated black men out there that when you call them Uncle Tom, they just smile. Because they either think that, number one, you're complimenting them, which you are, or two, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Excuse my language. So anyway, going on. Vest says, more like keyboards that think they are wolves, but they're really just snowflakes. Oh, God, yes, there's a lot of snowflakes out there. Vest says Obama couldn't piss people off over 8 years, but Trump can with under 140 characters. Exactly. Vest says kinda like Chirac story. Susan says I will. Okay. But yes, Vest, yeah, kind of like the Chirac story. Yeah, exactly. And Susan, okay, I will. Appreciate it. Thank you for jumping in, Susan. Once again, guys, thank you all for jumping in. Thank you, Vern. I think you showed on here that you shared my video. Thank you very much for that. And as always, guys, thank you for jumping on and listening to me, rant, giving my 2 cents. I appreciate it very much. I love it. And once again, guys, as always, please do your research. Please, please, please. And any information you guys have, especially when I'm going over certain things, if I'm out of bounds, if I don't know what I'm talking about, if I do know what I'm talking about, if I'm missing something, whatever the case may be, always feel to drop it in the comments. I'm always here, always willing to take any type of comment, criticism, but please, as always, as I always say respectfully, please be respectful, as you would want me to be if I'm jumping on your page and on your posts. And trolls alike, I don't mind trolls. Feel free to troll. I don't mind at all. It is what it is, especially when you put yourself out there in a forum like this. But as I always say, guys, be blessed. I do believe in God. I will pray for you guys. Jesus Christ is my master and savior, also known as Yahushua Mashiach. Yahweh Elohim is my God. Ruach HaKodesh is the Holy Spirit. And so I pray, and I will always pray, and I always pray for you all, even if you don't believe or you believe something else. I'll still pray, because that's what you're supposed to do. Setting an example. And I may have set the best example. I'm not perfect. Relax. I'm just a regular guy. Average Joe Jeff Johnson. So once again, guys, thank you very much. And this week will actually be a little different for the end of this week. Instead of Thursday, and I know sometimes I do videos on Friday, but this Friday I'm going to do a video, and it's not going to be Pacific Standard Time. It's actually going to be Eastern Standard Time. So I'll do a video this Friday. I'll say 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Once again, this Friday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll hit you guys with whatever topics I'm going to be discussing. Feel free to jump in, and I can't wait to see you guys in. Take care, and Vest says feel free to check out 2 Cent Knowledge drop on YouTube. Appreciate that, Vest, and we'll talk. Take care, guys. Love y'all. Peace.